Namaste yogis, welcome back in. It's my pleasure to guide you through a full-length yin and restorative practice today. We will be offering a review of the 5th, 6th, and 7th limbs of the 8-limbed path of yoga. So Pratyāhāra, the 5th limb, Dhāraṇā, the 6th limb, and Dhyāna, the 7th limb. So this practice will invite you into a state that is a course that is very preparatory for your meditative state, as well as open up space for deeper levels of meditation. And in fact, the yin yoga practice is often referred to as meditating in shapes. It's a really beautiful practice to work with the later limbs of the 8-limbed path to yoga. Before we begin, I really recommend that you have 2 bolsters or 2 pillows. You might even want a 3rd one if you know you like your practice extra cushy for yin and restorative. 2 blocks are always a good idea so that you have symmetrical support in the postures where you'd like it, as well as a blanket. Particularly for this style of yoga, always a good idea to have a blanket or 2 for joint support, in particular for knees and ankles in more grounded postures. So once you have all of your equipment and your space set up and ready for practice, we'll begin down in Shavasana. So you can pause the video if you need to, and then when you're ready, go ahead and meet me there. So let's get started. Make your way all the way down to the earth. Of course, if you like, you can take support underneath your knees. We won't be here too long. Just want to get rooted into the practice. Take your feet about hips width distance apart, and if it's comfortable, you can kind of allow the inseam of your feet, so the big toe edge, inseam of your hip, thigh, and calves to open upward toward the sky. And allow your arms to open so that the palms lift upward toward the sky as well, into a very soft and subtle Shavasana. So here we'll drop into a really soft, no pressure overview of the 5th limb, Pratyāhāra. This is an opportunity for you at the very start of class to notice how when you close the sensory stimulation, all of that which you're receiving from around you at all times throughout the day, when you begin to close that down through something so simple as closing the eyes, how that really opens up the gateway for a deeper dive into your internal experience. So allow your eyes to close, but they can stay really soft. So we're not taking a forced scan. It's very gentle. Allow it to be easy. If it feels like force, then take a step back and soften. You might notice the sensory input of those areas of your body that are making contact with the earth, but at the same time, notice how that is your sense of touch in a lack of effort. So you're not reaching or grasping to touch. It's sort of happening to you passively. And it's part of how your body is informing itself at this moment. And now that you've begun your journey within, we'll be here just about a little over a minute more. You can start to follow the movement of your breath with your mind. And notice any tendency of wanting to follow any sound that may arise in the background in your home, in your practice space. Notice any tendency to want to open your eyes and look to follow what is going on, and how all of these windows, these sensory windows, are giving input. They're giving stimulation to the system. And for most of us, it's happening throughout the day and sometimes in unconscious ways. So this is really a real treat for the nervous system to begin to shut down that sensory overload and come into a space of Pratyāhāra, that withdrawal of the senses. This is the best preparatory practice as you move toward deeper meditation. So you've opened space now to observe your inner world with a little bit less sensory distraction. Take a last 3 cycles of breath. And then with your next inhale, you can reach your arms up overhead. Reach your toes toward the top edge of your mat. You can maybe point and flex your toes, spread your fingers, and then point. Maybe roll some circles with your wrists and ankles like you're just reawakening for the morning. And then wiggle your feet, both feet, over toward the top right corner of your mat. There's going to be a couple options here as we shift into the first yin shape of Anahatasana, the banana shape. So both feet will come to the front right corner of your mat, and you can take your left ankle and crisscross it atop the right if you'd like. As you wiggle into it, if that feels like too much of an edge, you can always separate and keep the feet side by side. Then begin to wiggle your fingertips toward the back right corner of your mat so that feet come to the front right, hands extend and reach back over the back right edge of your mat so that you make this kind of crescent moon or banana shape with your body. Check in that the left hip is still relatively grounded on the mat, so that we're not kind of rolling over onto our side, but we're rather grounded here. Options for upper arms might be to bind opposite elbows, or if it feels like too much edge or there's sharpness or shooting for the shoulder, you can also bring your left arm down alongside your body and reach with just the right fingertips. So explore the variations there. Find the one that's going to fit your body best, and we'll settle in for 3 full minutes here. Bananasana. And I will invite you to come back to an exploration of withdrawing the senses. So if you have not already, you can come back to eyes closed, particularly if you've been looking up at the screen. It's always an interesting addition to our yoga practice in this modern world and these modern practices where we're looking into blue light on computer screens as we're practicing. So I invite you to close down the lids of your eyes and rest them and get soft. Soften your jaw and soften your breath. And again, without judgment, really just notice what you're taking in for information through your senses as you begin to quiet yourself here. So all these little thousands of tidbits of information that we absorb so unconsciously, so automatically through our day-to-day experience. And now we have time to explore that intake. So do you hear anything in your environment that is drawing your awareness away from this present moment? Do you smell anything in your environment that's pulling you away from this present experience? Is there any sort of taste or flavor that's registering in your experience? We have just about 1 minute left on this side. Take space in this last minute to scan and observe. last full breaths. And then if you have your feet bound at the front edge of your mat, you can go ahead and release that crisscross and roll right over onto your right side. So you can allow your head to rest onto the pillow of your upper arm. Make sure you readjust so that you're cushioned on your mat. You can always grab your blanket here to give a little extra cushion to your hip where it's making contact with the earth. So we'll transition right into the next posture on the same side. So resting on your right side, extend your left leg long and reach your toes forward. So we're going to make this shape in the lower body. It's kind of like you're leaping a hurdle in the lower body. Once you have your left leg extended long with your foot off the edge of your mat, slide your right heel back in space as if you want to drag your right heel toward touching your sacrum or your bum. Once you have this hurdle jumping shape in your lower body, there's lots of options here. So one is to stay right where you're at. If you feel like there's a lot of edge in your low back, this is a deep twist for you or a deep back bend sensation, you can stay right there and observe. If you want to play with an edge that's a little bit different, I invite you to draw your left shoulder back in space so that your heart lifts upward toward the sky. And then there'll be an option of either resting your left arm down onto the earth behind your back, or perhaps with your left hand, if it can happen quite naturally, you can reach to clasp your right foot or ankle behind you for cat grabbing its tail. So maybe it's here. If it feels like a lot of effort or force, or if there's really like a lift of that right knee in order to make this clasp, then forget about the bind. The bind is not so important. Make sure you're finding a form of edge that you can settle into for 4 full minutes. So we're going to settle in here for 4 full minutes into the posture, and I really love this one. It's like checking off so many boxes, which makes my that little pitta part of me very happy. It's such an efficient pose. We get a nice deep twist, a beautiful heart opener. It's also getting deep into the hips and the hamstrings. So soften in here. Again, in the yin practice, our challenge and our effort is like, how much can I surrender and how soft can I get? And this is why it's such a beautiful practice of these deeper limbs of the yoga practice. Although it is certainly an offering of asana, they are shapes, they are postures, but also there's something undeniably deeply meditative about this still practice. So as you drop in here, observe. We're about 1 minute in, so 3 more to go. If you haven't yet found a sweet spot to settle into stillness, I would encourage you to take the next 3 to 5 breaths and find that. And then the challenge is to find a form of posture that feels pristine for you. So there's no set model or code. It's going to be what's exactly right for your body for an optimal flow of prana, this life-giving force that's really going to light you up and support you in all aspects of your practice. This is the beauty of the practice of meditation, that all the asana that we practice really prepares us for an optimal posture where there's optimal and balanced energy flow, pranic flow, like a service, an offering to the body. We're over halfway there on this side. Smooth your breath. Observe your senses, where they wander, where they settle, where they feel balanced or imbalanced, where they feel precise and focused, where they feel like they might be running a bit wild, all just observations that can be made. Prepare yourself to follow the journey of 3 more breaths. And then as you move into your next inhale, without slingshotting your right leg, if you're bound there, release your left hand from your right foot. Slowly lengthen out your right leg. Can bend into your left leg. Remember, the last pillar of the yin practice is to ease out, right? Super slow motion. We've had a really long hold, so you want to be gentle to your body. Slow motion, roll out. Come back down toward the mat. You can leave your knees bent and touch your knees together at center for constructive rest between sides. We'll move into that same sequence on the second side, but first pause here in the middle. And I encourage you to really notice the depth of your experience on this second side and how it might be a little bit different than your experience on the first side. It always takes a few poses to kind of settle into the practice, quiet the mind, let the senses know they don't have to take in so much information during this quiet time. And then as everything sort of settles down, we're a bit more prepared for the practices of Dhāraṇā and Dhyāna. So as you're ready, go ahead and lengthen your legs out in front of you. Once again, reach your arms up high overhead. Move toward Anahatasana, opposite side. So this time, both feet come toward the front left edge of your mat. Front left corner, and same option. If you'd like, you can crisscross. This time around, it will be your right ankle atop your left. And then wiggle your fingertips and your shoulders toward the back left edge of your mat so that you're making a crescent moon or banana shape with your body. So both upper and lower limbs are leaning toward the same edge of your mat. And then upper body options, of course, either arms stay long, you can bind opposite elbows. If there's anything sharp or shooting in the shoulder, bring your right shoulder down alongside your ribs. Ensure that this right side hip isn't rolling or lilting upwards. Try to maintain crests of both hips lifting upward toward the sky so that the focus, the urge is really on finding length in the side body. All this length in the torso and the side body is really beautiful. Preparatory work for the body to be still and lifted for a meditative seat. So we'll settle in for 3 full minutes here. And you can take the first few moments to kind of wiggle and fidget and work into a place of steadiness. Now I'd like to offer you a little bit more work with Dhāraṇā. So deep concentration. And it may be helpful to find an anchor in order to begin cultivating that concentration. Now that the body, the mind, the experience is a little bit quieter, now allow your mind an anchor to root down, to come to center. So that might be following the pattern of your very own breath. Some folks like to tune into a silent mantra, or perhaps even a silent repetition of something like, now I am inhaling, now I am exhaling. About 1.5 minutes left to go here. Smooth your breath. It doesn't matter what your anchor of focus and concentration is, but search into your experience and find one that is definitive. So rather than just kind of listening to my voice and contemplating the idea of an anchor, really find one in your own practice that feels precise. What am I weaving my mind onto so that I can cultivate deep concentration? And then find 3 more breaths there. And as you're ready, just as we moved out of the other side, you can untangle your lower limbs. Untangle your lower limbs. Roll right on over to your left side. I'm going to flip around so that you can see me, but you can stay in the same lengthwise as you are. I'm going to just kind of flip around so that you can look up and see if anything's unclear. So roll right over to your left side. Down, lay onto the pillow of your upper left arm. And just as we did on the other side, extend your right leg long this time around. So sole of your foot reaches out off the long edge of your mat. And then take your left knee, and remember you can cushion your left hip or knee if that's uncomfortable for your body on the earth. Slide your knee back and draw your left heel in toward the sacrum and in toward the glutes. So option A is to stay and hang out here if this feels like enough of an edge for you in this next shape. Option B would be to open up the front or the top of your right shoulder toward the sky, and you maintain that hurdle leaping shape in the lower body. You can hang here. And option C is going to be to take your right hand and link onto the top of your left foot or left ankle. So remember, if that creates a lot of force or there's like a lift or a strain or too much efforting there, then forget about the bind. We want this shape and this experience to be really soft in the practice of yin. So soft space, just like we want our meditation to be soft and unforced. Now, as you land here, we'll drop in for 4 full minutes. 4 full minutes. And return to your anchor. And you have the withdrawal of the senses, your Pratyāhāra practice to call on before getting into that space of focus and concentration as well. So if you need to move through a scan of all the senses, what are they receiving for input? How can you soften that input or move away from it so that your awareness can really drop toward your inner experience? And then once you drop to your inner experience, then really give your mind a point of focus and concentration to link onto. Find a one-pointedness in your experience. It might even be an area, a part of your body or your experience, the edge that you're feeling. Maybe one pointed focus on your right big toe or the tip of your nose, something very specific. And then smooth and soften your breath. So we're about halfway through on this second side. Just to give you a check-in at any point if the sensation feels like it's too much or it's not within alignment of ahimsa, if it feels sharp, it's not serving your body, then you can use your discernment that you're developing through your yoga practices, through your spiritual practices, and back off or support where you need to. We have a little bit over a minute left to go, so make sure that there's two things happening simultaneously, that there's an edge and a challenge, and there's also a place where there's comfort and ease. And then focused, one-pointed awareness. Move that focus into a loop that follows your breath for 3 more cycles. And then with your next inhale, go ahead and bend into your right knee. Slow motion, ease out of the posture. Roll down to the earth. Once again, you can release the bind of right hand to left foot if you have found that. Slowly make your way back toward belly up, back rooted. Bend into your knees and touch them together at the midline for constructive rest. You can allow your palms to rest down or face up, whatever feels like it's most nurturing your practice, and pause. Allow the length of the spine to neutralize, the hips, the heart to neutralize after this really big and multifaceted posture. Cat pulling its tail, soften into your breath and into your body, back at neutral. And observe just a few more breaths. As you're ready, draw your knees up and into your heart. If it might feel good in your practice, you can circle your knees with your palms, a little bit of warming movement. Maybe circle your knees in big circles to the right and the left. A little bit of movement and warmth for your low back. And then roll down onto your favorite side, either right or left, to press yourself up toward 4 points. Take all the time you need to settle in there. So remember you have your blanket to support your knees if you'd like, and we'll take a supported variation of child's pose on this next one. So please grab at least one bolster. You might like to stack a couple of them up. And then also, if you'd like, you can make a little wedge with your blocks. I like that option. So you can kind of take one to the lowest or the middle setting and take one to the highest setting and drape your bolster over the blocks. So you have like a little bit of a ledge or a wedge to lean on. And then allow your knees to come out about mat's width apart. Make sure that they're still supported with the cushion of the mat, or of course, as I said, grab your blanket. And then go ahead and come down. We'll take a little bit of space here to observe before the next shape. So settle in for 4 minutes. If you have your blocks there, you can weave your arms, forearms between the blocks. If it's comfortable, rest down to one ear or the other. I'll let you know when we're about midway through so that you can counter the posture by flipping over to the other ear. And this is only an option if you'd like to explore. And of course, the first is to allow your eyes to close but remain soft without force. And if you'd like to explore, you might also bring your hands to cover your ears. Remember, we'll be here about 4 minutes. So if you get really lost in deep meditation, just keep an eye on the screen or the time so that you can move on to the next pose with us. But if you'd like to explore, you can plug both of your ears and allow your eyes to close down. Bring your third eye point to the bolster. So we're in a deeper withdrawal of the senses here with eyes closed and now ears closed. And notice if you can kind of drop in with a bit more depth to that single pointed focus, that singular concentration that we're looking for, this next step up, this next level up toward meditation. Make sure that you are comfortable and also that there is an aspect of edge or challenge. This is why this practice is just so rich and fruitful, that it's got the slowness and the steadiness and the ease in a lot of ways, and also there's that very deep challenge, much like meditation. It seems like sitting still is something that anyone can access, and yet we also know how deeply challenging that practice truly is. Steadiness of your breath. We're about midway through the posture. So if you are on one ear or the other, make sure you flip to the opposite ear. And if you're at neutral neck spine with your ears plugged, you can stay right where you are. Last minute to go. And take 2 last breaths right where you are, without moving or shifting or changing. Really present. And then start to slide your weight back over your hips. Any support, any equipment that you have set up for your supported child's pose, you can slide that out of the way. Keep your blocks handy as well as your blanket for this next posture. Wiggle your knees back into alignment and then slide your hips up over your knees. Come back toward a tabletop. If you need any sort of movement for hips, for your rib cage, you can draw some circles or take a couple cat and cow postures here. And then spread your fingers out wide and root each knuckle down. Tuck your 10 toes under behind you and reach your hips high and back. It can be a soft downward facing dog, so you can allow your knees to stay gently bent or maybe pedal the heels out, just for a couple breaths as we transition. And then lift your gaze forward. Step your right foot up. It can also be a couple steps. You can help with your hands to bring your right foot forward and land your left knee down onto the mat behind you. So here's where your blanket might come in really handy. You can also fold your yoga mat for extra cushion. And I like to take my blocks to either side, and I have really, really long arms, and I still like to use the blocks. So I really recommend this variation. You can take them to any of the heights. Will be a 3-minute low flying dragon here. So you can lean your hips forward. Really drop down deep into the front of your left hip. You're going to feel the edge along the top of your left hip. This is where the cushion for your back knee or ankle might be handy. You can untuck your toes. If you feel like you need more edge, you can also bring both blocks to the inside of your right hip and drop down towards your elbows, or maybe even all the way down to the earth. So remember, 3 full minutes here. You can lower your gaze and allow your head to hang heavy if the traction for your neck spine feels okay. If you'd like to keep your gaze lifted, I would encourage you to either find a really, really soft drishti toward the horizon, or even stay there steadily with eyes closed. Soft and smooth sensory experience, and also a diligent focus and concentration. And focus and concentration does not mean a force of action. So notice if that's coming into your practice, if there's force or a very heavy dose of efforting. Then come back to an exploration of what your senses are taking in. How can you get softer? Just about 1.5 minutes on this side. And as with any of the postures at any point, if anything feels like it's not serving your practice, particularly if it's taking you out of a more meditative state, then shift something, invite in more support so that you can come back toward relative stillness and deep meditative focus. Take 3 more full breaths. And then start to ease back. Remember, slow. Ease out. Slide your right knee back toward meeting your left. And between sides, we'll take a heart-melting pose, the yin variation of Anahatasana. One option, as a little different variation, is to prop your elbows onto blocks if you like that variation. Take both of your blocks to the lowest setting, press your palms together, and then you'll dive the crown of your head between your elbows and invite the pads of your thumbs toward the base of your cervical spine. And of course, always option here as well to invite in support for your knees with your blanket. Otherwise, you can bring your elbows right down toward the earth, and same expression in the palms. Palms meet at center. Rest your third eye point or your chin down to the earth. Bring your thumbs back toward the base of your cervical spine. 3 full minutes here. These forward folding or head low gestures where the eyes can be closed, where there's like a little safe haven for the whole head, the ears, the nose, the eyes, the mouth. It's really supportive of that practice of withdrawing your senses. Check in with your posture. It's similar to child's pose, although your hips stay high over your knees rather than resting back on your heels. So take a check-in that your hips are stacked high above your knees. And smooth your breath. Remember, you can find that one pointed anchor for your focus, for your concentration. The 7th limb to prepare you for, or the 6th limb rather, to prepare you for that 7th limb of meditation. The deepest layer of meditation, Dhyāna, as we prepare to open into more and more space for silence and stillness in the practice. Take 3 more rounds of breath. And then if you aren't already there, extend your arms out long, press your palms down into the floor, root your knuckles. Lift up from the back side of your heart with a rounded back and roll your weight forward. You can step your knees in so that your shoulders can slide up above your wrists. Again, there's an option here to move into any sort of, trunk rolls or cat and cow that will feel neutralizing after that deep back bend, that deep heart opener. And then once you settle back toward neutral, tuck your 10 toes under. Again, to transition to the opposite side for low flying dragon, tuck your toes, reach your hips high and back. You can keep your knees soft or alternate from side to side for a couple breaths. And then lift your gaze forward and step or support your left foot all the way up through and land your right knee down. Grab for your blanket if you know you like that support. Grab for your blocks, but you know your trunk is going to stay low. We're taking a low flying variation of dragon. You can untuck your toes behind you and start to lean your weight forward so that there's lots of good sensation in the top of your right hip this time around. You're going to feel it on the inner left hip as well. Again, what we're looking out for are things like shooting and sharpness, particularly in knee or ankle, hip, any joint shooting or sharpness we really want to back off. Find something that feels sustainable for you, where you can be still and you can be steady in your experience. So that might mean here, again, it might mean taking both of the blocks to the inside of your left foot and dropping down. So it's a little bit lower. In a lot of bodies, that's going to be a slightly deeper sensation. Smooth the breath. Again, weight of your head can fall if that traction for your neck spine feels good. Otherwise, keep your gaze soft and only very subtly lifted toward the horizon. Make sure your eyes are soft, your breath is soft, any sounds in your space are soft. Your body and your tissues and your focus are all soft. The experience of meditation is really like an experienced softness, right? It can get confusing that it has to be an exertion of force, or I have to like cannonball my way into stillness or nothingness. But it really is about being present with what is, without judgment, right? And without exception. So we're going to be here for about 1.5 minutes more. And if you're not having that experience of softness in your posture, what might you need to adjust, or how might you need to support yourself to find it? You can always bring your hands down to the earth. Either framing your left foot or both to the inside of your left foot. Smooth your breath, soften your eyes, soften your jaw, soften your body. There might be space to move deeper. We have about 30 seconds left here. So focus, anchor onto the movement of your breath. And then with your next inhale, slow motion. You can tuck your toes under behind you if you'd like. Slow motion. Slide back. Bring your right knee back, or left knee rather, to meet your right. Stack up your joints. You can set your blocks off to the side for the moment. We're going to snuggle down into a restorative shape, our first restorative shape, as we start to settle down the body and get quiet and neutralized. So bring a bolster across the short length of your mat. Lean your weight forward. Rest the crest of your hips onto your bolster. Of course, those with 2 pillows, if you like a little higher stack, you can explore that as well, as long as your knees and the tops of your feet make contact with the earth. You can bring your arms back alongside your ribs. You can also rest hand on top of hand at the top edge of your mat if you want a neutral neck spine, so long as the shoulders feel rested and relaxed. There is also an option here. Again, these kind of folding inward shapes are really beautiful spots for that deep practice of Pratyāhāra. So there is also an option here to rest your third eye point down to your mat and use your index and middle finger to plug either ear. This is only if this is comfortable for your shoulders, for your neck, for your overall posture. So remember, no force. If it's supportive for your practice, explore blocking out eyes and ears. Allow your whole body, your whole experience to puddle down into the mat and into that vastness, that huge space of silent experience, of witness experience. Meditation is not a space of perfection. It's rather an open canvas of witness exploration, where you're aware of your whole experience, but there is no space for judgment. There is no space for smaller minds. So you don't have to deny any part of your experience. It's a sitting with all that is in that big, wide open ocean, that big blank canvas. Take 3 more breaths. And then if you have your ears plugged, start to slide your palms down to the earth, press them into the mat underneath your shoulders, and lift all the way up and back toward table. You can sit back onto your heels if that's comfortable, or sweep your feet around to the front. We'll set up for one last restorative shape before Shavasana. So bring your 2 bolsters or 2 pillows end to end on your mat. We're going to take this as a really soft expression, a restorative shoulder stand, but certainly if you're at home and you have access to extra bolsters or extra pillows, you can always elevate this, take it a little bit higher, which will create a little bit more of an edgy experience. However, I would encourage you to allow this last really meditative shape to be soft. So set up your bolsters end to end, and then go ahead and come to sit right about in the middle. One will support the length of your legs and the other one your torso, supported shoulder stand, and then lean back far enough that your shoulders, this is really important, your shoulders make contact with the mat. So if you're kind of dangling off the bolster, you'll need to back up just a smidge so that your shoulders make really firm contact with the mat and your palms can open upward to the sky. If this feels like way too much sensation, you can also take this as a supported heart bridge. You can slide the bolster up, catch from low back to the back of your head, and remove the second bolster so your hips and lengths of your legs stay grounded, but it's still a heart-opening expression. This adds in it gives you the heart opener, but also adds in just a little bitty inversion to the practice, which inversions are wonderful for supporting Ajna, the third eye, as well as your Sahasrara, the crown chakra. So these chakras that are more connected to the subtle aspects of the practice as we dive into the last shape here and the deepest open space for Dhyāna, our deep meditation. So your expression in your outer body may be quiet and still, but what's happening in your inner world is a lot of space to observe and explore. You may not necessarily enjoy what comes up, but I urge you to rest away from judgment. And allow for a depth and wholeness to your experience, which means allowance. Whatever is there is authentic. It's part of your experience. It's part of your wholeness. Sitting with it, both the ease and the challenges, that is the meditation. Take the last 3 breaths right as you are. And then bend into your knees. Roll over over toward one side. Don't worry, we're not going to skip Shavasana. You'll get a brief Shavasana here, mostly to neutralize your spine after that subtle back bend. So you can slide your bolsters out of the way, off of your mat. If you need to sit up to do that, make sure you're moving without hurry and without force, and then lengthen your legs out. Open the inseam of your thigh, the inner line of your feet, big toe edge up to the sky, and allow your palms to open upward. And again, explore a soft expression. So notice if your Shavasana is very contracted or sharp. Get really, really soft here. And then notice all those areas of sensory input, particularly up and around the head, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears. Can you get really soft in their expression? And then breathe as if you could soften all of the skin, the biggest sensory organ of all. And allow yourself to melt into the whole experience of being you in this moment. This is Dhyāna, deep meditation. The whole experience of being you right now. In the next 5 to 10 breaths, you can start to add in very subtle movement. Perhaps beginning at the tips of your toes or with the tips of your fingers. Rock your head from side to side. Reach up high and back to awaken and enliven your whole experience once again, the whole length of your body, and then draw your knees towards your heart and take a roll over toward your favorite side. And without hurry, press yourself up toward a last seat where we can seal this practice together. And you can come toward Dhyāna or Dhyani Mudra. So rest your right palm into the left palm and allow your thumbs to touch lightly at center. The gesture or seal of Dhyāna, of meditation, the seventh limb of the eight-limbed practice of yoga. Allow yourself to drop into the freedom of that big, wide open space, that internal space, where there's freedom from the sensory experience of your day-to-day life. And if you feel really super duper prepped for a lengthier meditation practice, then I invite you to hold tight exactly as you are right here, right now. And I thank you all so much for joining in this practice. Pratyāhāra, Dhāraṇā, and Dhyāna. Have a beautiful day ahead. Namaste.